Yeah, when we come to the professional life, it's these days it's like the plots. What we are going to get the meaningful insights, like what the patterns or the information which we are retrieving from the plots is something which is really important. And as a part of the data science professionals, we all are every day-to-day life, we have been dealing with lot of data, and it's really difficult to scan through the entire data set through our eyes. Rather, we can make use of some plots which in a glance gives us the information about what exactly is or what is the underneath patterns which are defined in the data. So we have so many plots now. When we come to the data science, Python, which is acting as a big role these days, already we have large number of plot packages which helps us to do a lot of good plots and get the meaningful insights. Then what's so special about the Bokeh when compared to the others? That's the interesting content for the day. Now, talking about this, I've been working on the D3.js for almost, I have worked with around 2 years, and I know the importance of the JavaScript because that is entirely based. And it gets difficult for a person who doesn't have that good background of the JavaScript. Now, to get that interaction level, D3 is something which gives us a good interaction and also works with the streaming data. Now, if that's the case, a person who doesn't have much knowledge about the JavaScript but still wants to look and have a good interactivity, who doesn't like the interactivity rather than the static plots. So to make use of it, there is something called Bokeh, where we can create the interactive plots with a very little knowledge of the JavaScript but not in detail. So that will help us to understand more. Now, this is the striking point of the Bokeh. Like with good knowledge of the Python and very basic knowledge of the JavaScript, we can kick off our Bokeh learnings for the day. Considering that, getting into the Bokeh.
Soumya, can I just stop you for a moment?
Yep, please.
For the ones who just joined, please click on the red telephone sign button to actually enable your audio. A lot of people asking in the chat, you have to click that button, that gives you an option. So for that, then only the audio will be enabled. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, talking about the Bokeh, so before getting into the details like how the dashboards are creating and jumping ahead, considering the diversity of the audience today, would like to give a brief introduction of what is Bokeh and what are the on a higher level, what are the basic things needed to form the plots using the Bokeh, and then we can jump into the dashboard with the help by connecting all the things which we learned in the basics. That's the agenda for the day. Now, talking about how exactly the Bokeh works, though we say that Bokeh also includes the JavaScript. So the architecture of Bokeh in such a way that we create the plots using the Python. Our Python code itself is using that we will be drawing or we will be plotting our charts. Now, what happens underneath and under the hood is like all the Python objects which we are forming converts into a model object, and that gets transformed into the JSON objects. Now, why JSON? A client library which understands and makes the plots interactively, that is something which the JSON data is suitable for, and this is majorly the transformation which is happening, and this will be taken up by the Bokeh.js, and then it forms the plots on our web browsers. So Bokeh is, as we say, this is an modern interactive web browsers. This is underneath how it is happening. Using the Python, whatever plots we are creating, they get converted into the Bokeh.js understandable language, and it gets converted and it shows the plots on the web browsers. Now, you guys can go through this. The entire thing what we are showing today will be shared with you, and this is for your reference. I have added certain points, maybe in later on point you want to go through. And now, coming to the point of Bokeh. So how exactly do we plot that? Now, Bokeh, it is a layers, like we keep on adding for this, and we keep adding. Glyphs is something which comes, you keep hearing about when we talk about the Bokeh. What are glyphs? They are nothing but the renderers and the elements which we keep adding to the plots. Maybe through the next examples, you'll get a clear picture of what exactly is glyph and how it gets rendered is something you'll have a clear idea going forward. let me know if you guys want me to slow down the pace, or if you have any questions, and anyway put it in the chat. So we will take that going forward. Now let me jump into the real example. So we'll have a brief overview of what exactly and how exactly we plot it. Now this for the person who is installing or dealing with the Bokeh for the very first time, we can download it using our pip install Bokeh or kunna install Bokeh. And once the Bokeh is installed, we will have all the libraries required. And the very first thing we do is to instantiate the libraries which we are going to use going forward. Once the libraries are defined, then how exactly are we going to plot the Bokeh, and how are we going to view them? These are the key important parts. Now, the Bokeh documents, the models which we form, which gets defined, is turned into the documents. I'll show you the architecture and the structure of it going forward again. Now, let me give you a very simple example to get a gist of how exactly the Bokeh plots look like. Now, when we plot Bokeh, there are two ways of viewing it. One is a standalone HTML document, which we'll be able to view using the output file. And the other is the output notebook, where we don't want to save it in any file, rather we want to use it in the notebook itself. These are the two different ways of viewing the plots which we are plotting as a part of this task. Now, the very first thing, I will show you the output file and how we form it. We look at the figure. This is the major component while we go with the Bokeh plots. This is nothing but something who are used to the matplotlibs. We have the plots, where that is a major binding attribute, and then it plots us the charts. Now here, figure is a part of low-level object of the Bokeh, where we have it by default have the lot of default arguments options provided, and we can modify it as per our need. Like just as an example here, I'll show you the title, x-axis labelings, and the height and width, what we want to and how we want to view the plot. Now, once the figure is defined, this is the major object which is defined. And next, how do we want to see that? Like a line or a circles, or what kind of structure we want to look with? That is something we would look with the renderers. There are a lot of renderers available, and one can go through the multiple types which we have. And one point would like to mention over here is, one beautiful thing about Bokeh, very good resources and information, and the documentation is really great, and we have a very great support for it. And with ample of examples, anybody who is starting and a beginner can also be able to catch it up, because it's so crystal clear, and with a lot of examples, if anyone is stuck as well, they'll have a good support. That is one point which I would like to mention here. Yeah, and as an example, I will show you guys the renderer type called line, and I'll just execute this. So if we see this, what exactly is happening here? Now, I have drawn a plot which is just for which I have defined the values using the list items, and then I am just plotting a line. And this is something, when we said output file, this automatically opens up a new file, a plot, in a browser, which is having this format. So what is this is when we want to have a standalone output files, and we want to showcase to somebody, they can make use of this output files. Now this is one way, and the second is, we don't want to go through a new file, rather we want to use it in the notebook itself. We want to use it. One point to note here. So in a notebook or any kind of activity, we will be dealing with multiple plots as we have the requirements. Therefore, sometimes we might want to create the files, therefore we use output file, and sometimes we want to use the plot in the notebook itself. So there is a transition, or the shift we'll be doing from output file to output notebook. There is a small glitch here, which is when we do it immediately, the notebook doesn't clear that. Still the output file, it takes us in an output mode, and still it gives us an open file. Therefore, we have to do and use this reset output when we are going to use output notebook and output file in a similar notebook in a one particular activity. Now, what will this do? Reset output over here will clear the output file and set the output of this notebook to a notebook, Jupyter notebook, and then shows us the plot. If you observe this, it did not open in a new browser, and we have seen this plot over here. So this is the simple line example which we can I showed you with Bokeh. Now, you people may have this question: why do we have to go through all this when we have Matplotlib and Seaborn, which we are already well known, and why do we need all these things? The interesting part actually comes here. So the best part of the Bokeh is not just the plotting, but things which are really required for the data science professional, that is investigate. We want to look at the data, understand the data. We want to investigate what's there in the data. That's where the interactive tools which you see in the right side comes in handy. So there are multiple tools which Bokeh comes up with, and we can make use of as per the requirement. And I have given the link over here so that you guys can have a quick view. And just to brief on a higher level, we have 5 major categories which the Bokeh interactivity is provided with, like a pan and drag options, click, scroll, action, and the hover. So these are the multiple where I'll touch base few points. I may not cover all the categories, but I'll touch base few points as a part of this particular session. Now let me go and start with hover tool. What is hover? Now, we view this plot, but I mean, this looks very simple, but in a real time, we don't have such a simple data. We have thousands of data of information, and we want to know at what instant of time what was the value. Now, that is something which is provided by using the hover. Though your plot is complex, still sometimes using with all these provided tools, we can view them very easily. Example. This is a similar code which we did before, where we have started a figure, where we have added a renderer. Now this is a differentiator. That is a hover tool, where for every point of x and y what we are plotting, we will have a tooltip provided to it. So when we hover over it, we will be able to see the value. What is the corresponding x and y values, not just these values. If in the later point of the example you will get an idea, whatever the data frames which we are going to use, if it has multiple values, though we are not plotting it and still we want to retain the information for the user to view, we can still add them. I will show you and you will get the idea what I am mentioning right now and some point later. So this is something, a hover tool. This is the interaction which it provides as a part of one of the feature. Now, is it just so? No. So as I'll just show you, this is pan, and we have this box zooms, the 5 categories which I told you about before. These are some of them, and this is a wheel zoom, and we do have a save option, which is like a savior for many of the data. Again, persons who are dealing with all the plots. It's like you like the plot, you found it really interesting, but now you want to save it and show it to somebody. So how do we use it? So instantly we can save it to our local system and we can share it with anybody as we want. So work done is not wasted, like not just a data exploratory, but we can also share the insights with the other people by saving them. So that is one of the best option which is shared by the Bokeh again. And I'll make use of them one after the other slowly, and will introduce you to the some of the tools. Now, if you observe, I have made use of lists and the data frames and the NumPy declarations of the data so far, but in the real time, we will majorly dealing with the pandas data frames or pandas data frame and something else, right? So coming into that topic, how do we use data frames in coordination with the Bokeh? That is something which I'm going to show you guys. Now, Bokeh by default comes with good sample data information, and so we can download them and we can make use of the existing data for our analysis. And you can use this doing this, running these commands. Now I'm making use of the Apple stock information for my activities right now, and this is the data set AAPL which I'll be using going forward. Now I have read the data and I've put it in the data frame, and this is just to get a gist of what the data looks like. I'm showcasing here, and once that is done, before we were just passing our list values, now we will be passing the columns which we are interested to look in the plots and what we are interested to investigate. Now here I want to see what's the closing price and how can I see the differences, I mean the trends or the patterns if I want to observe. So this is the one which it does it like similar, the figure declaration, and we can also set the type of the x-axis and the y-axis. Now in this case it is date, whereas I want to have in a very formatted this value, so we can add the formatters and we can mention what is the kind of the data which we are passing through the axis. This is a good information and for the developers, rather than playing with the data over there, we can directly mention it over here. Now I have formed I have plotted this figure. Now just to view another one, not just the line figure, but wanted to show a bar plot. And how do we do it? So as I told you, there are many glyphs which are by default provided by the Bokeh. V-bar is something which is also by default, and we can make use of it. And this is the formatter which I told you guys about. Now, as my data is in volume is very huge, I want to set that into a certain format where I have defined in this format. So we can see like this is the format in which my y-axis looks like. Now what's so special about this? Now we have this data and we want to see on what day what exactly is the stock values. Now we can zoom it, we can pan it, and we can also play around seeing values. Now if here, as it fits the exact width and height, it might not be the right way, but if we have a large amount of data and we want to scroll and we want to see what exactly is the panning about, then we can use this option of pan and then zoom. Now out of this entire data set, my major interest of area is between 2004 to 2010, and at this point of time I want to investigate only this area. So I'll highlight only this part and this gets zoomed up, and we have a clear zoomed up picture of this, and we can understand what exactly and what value is there at certain point of time. And to go back to the original, we have this reset button where you can reset and it goes back to the original state. So this is what about the zoom. Now let me show you guys some interesting thing. I have my price and I also have volume. Now I want to see in coordination of price with my volume together, and I want it in a single plot so that I don't need to jump and from one plot to the another plot to see the differences or to understand what's the price corresponding to the volume. So in that case, we have something called linking panning. What is linked panning? So in that case, let me just bring up this. Yes, linked panning is something, a feature which is again provided by the Bokeh. What exactly is it? Now we create two plots where two plots share the same x-axis, I mean the range objects. So the any action on one of the plot reflects on the other accordingly. So this is what the linked panning does. Now in this case, that is what it explains. And now in this case, how do I do it? Now as I told you guys first, the closing price is something which we have plotted first, and I've added few formatters just for the just to show the attributes level of information, and also price. Now I combined both and then showed here. So when we see here, this is the stock prices and this is the volume. And now if I want to scroll the action on one plot, I'm not making two changes. I'm doing an action only on one plot, but if you see, the movement is applied on both the plots because they share the same axis. So this is something which we'll be using in the real time where we want to do this kind of analysis, interlinking multiple plots. So we have in a quick view. This is not an interaction, but this is just a quick view of comparison or to understand the action between the two plots. Now this is linked panning, and maybe to just for the better clarity, I have also used one more example. Like in this case, I have used 3 plots and I have arranged them in a layout of horizontal layout. Now I want to make an action like I want to zoom only one particular part of this, and tada, it reflects on the other 2 parts. So how it's useful in other cases, like maybe in time, consider we have multiple plots like world, country level plots we have, and we are choosing a certain part of section on one plot of world. The exact that part should be get reflected on the country region. So this is just a quote, an example I'm mentioning this. So in the real time, these kind of two, if we zoom out and want to concentrate on one particular region, and if those kind of actions can be achieved very well using this feature. That is one of the example of the linked panning. Now coming to the brushing, this is just for the investigation again, but to view and highlight the concentrated regions, and what is it and how do we achieve that. Now these are majorly done as linked panning is related by the axis, linked brushing is related by the data source. Now these 2 plots share the same data source, and once we do it, if I make an action on one particular I'm selecting this particular region, and if you observe the same part of it, like the region between two mid half, I mean almost till 8, something like that, and we want to correlate with these with a certain other part. So in that way, if we want to highlight certain sections of regions, brushing comes into the handy. So this is one more feature which the Bokeh provides us with. Now talking about the tools, interactions, or all, let's go further and how do we what are the important data structures which is applicable to the Bokeh, and also what are the different formats in which we can prepare the dashboards with. So jumping into that, now as we all know, the Python has the different data structures. Now in a similar way, the Bokeh is majorly dependent on the column data source. That is one type of the data structure which Bokeh is form of. Now how is it different from our regular data frames and how is it useful? So Bokeh has a column data source which has underneath certain methods and attributes which helps in conversion of Bokeh elements to the UI elements. That is something which is underneath has certain elements and the conversions which it supports. Therefore, it has its prominence with respect to this particular column data source data structure with respect to Bokeh. And how do we do it? We can convert the regular, though the data is, we saved it in the data frames, we can anytime convert into the column data source. How do we do it? This is the data frame which we have declared before, and now I'm converting that into column data source. And how it is done? Column data source, after declaration, if we view from the data frame, I want to convert it into column data source. And after doing it, if I show you guys, this is converted into a dictionary. And how exactly it looks? It is this format where every column what we have in the AAPL data, which is the data frame, gets converted into a string of arrays. Now like this, these are the columns which we have, and these are the values. These are the continuous values which it forms into the form of an array. So this is the structure, and if I want to view the data, data, bad. What was that? Oh, sorry, keys. It's a dictionary, right? So if I look at the keys, it gives me all the column values, and if I look at the values, it gives me all the data information. So this is how the column data source looks like. And now let's draw a plot using the column data source, though we have seen with the data frames and all. Along with it, I'll explain you the layout structures which are there in the Bokeh. Now, these are the multiple columns or the data values which we have in the data source, which are the close, open values, high, and the low stock values. Excuse me. And we will make use of it. I define them as a form of figures right now. So I want to make use of this individual figures in my later explanations. I have created the 5 glyphs here. Now, let me jump into the the layout structures for these plots. Now, rows. When we talk about the dashboards or the layouts, we will consider we will arrange the plots in an order, right? So one way is arranging them in a horizontal stack. We can row method low module, which is defined in the Bokeh. So we we load the library and then we make use of it. So we define it. These two are the adjacent plots. And in a similar way, if I want to view the plots in a vertical stack, which is in this format, we have something called column. And this is how we can arrange 2 plots in a vertical layout. And never our original plots in a day-to-day life seems to be so easy, right? We want something like grids, nested, like one inside the other. So in such kind of environments, we come into the use of nested rows and columns. How do we do that? Here is one example. Now I am creating a column stack where I am placing 2 plots. Now these 2 column plots I want to join and coordinate with one more row plot. And how do I do it? I create a row and inside I pass one of the plot, and then I pass the row layout which I have defined earlier. Now, if you look at this, this is how the plot layout looks like. Now, oh God, okay, yeah, sorry. Now we have this plot structure. Now, why are we seeing the white space to the left corner? Because I did not define 2 in a left side stack, right? Therefore, we see a void over here. Now, we can also create the grid plots. The same can also be achieved using the grid plots. I have created 2 rows and then I wanted them to put them in a form of a grid, and then we can make use if I pass through these 2 particular layouts into the grid, I create this 4. Now what's so different between my before what I have done and what I am doing using the grid plot? The best part is within grid layout, we can make the interactions possible. Action on one particular plot can have we can see that interactions which I have explained you before. That is something which can be made possible using the grid plots also. So that is also one of the good features which is provided with the grid plot. Now, yeah, in the grid plot, now is it mandatory, like I want only this structure? Like what if I don't want to place 2 plots, like I want them diagonal? We can still achieve them, just that whatever locations we want to be void, we need to send them as none. So this is achievable with the grid plot and the void space kind of pattern what we want to achieve. This is the grid plot structure. Now, layouts are defined, but most of the times what we see in the dashboards is the tab structures. Consider a company is dealing with the multiple sections, and we want to where am I?
Yeah, go ahead, Soumya.
Now in a particular office, like we have certain sections, like finance is one section and operations is one, consulting is one, and we want to view certain different information with respect to every section, but I want everything to be on one dashboard. What can we do and how do we achieve that? So that's where the tabs come into the picture. We have Bokeh model widgets, and inside that we have the libraries like the tabs and the panel. And what we can make use of it is we can create multiple tabs using the certain layouts which I have defined earlier. But one thing which we need along with the tab is tabs go in conjunction with the panels. So all the elements which we want to create needs to be put inside the panel, and this is what the panel looks like. With the existing data, whatever I have defined, I am using and showing you guys this, but we will deal with a real-time example with touching base certain points which I am telling you right now, so you might have the clear idea. This is just you guys to get introduced to what are the things which are actually available with Bokeh and what we can do. I am giving this introduction. Now, with this, I have tabs information, and if you see open and close, I have got a row stack, and high, I'm just viewing this plot, and low, and I'm showcasing this plot. This is how we can achieve, and the logics which we want to use, and everything can go inside this row plots what we want to achieve. In the end, we will connect all the dots using this particular logic format. That's how the tabs are dealt. Now, once the tabs thing is done, next. Okay, so we have gone through the different layouts available and the tabs and what is the key data structure used in the Bokeh and why Bokeh. Now, let's try to use some interactivity using this and see how it's more different compared to the other existing libraries we have. Example. This is a small example here where I have defined my x and I gave the same value as y, and this is a plot which we can see. Now I'm adding a slider to it. Like based on the slider range, I want my y values to change to the power. When I say power, like if I have a x value of 2 and I change the slide value of 2, then I want my corresponding y value equals to 2 square. So this is the logic I want to achieve, and how can I do it? And I want to create this interaction between the slider and my static plot. So here is the way how we define the slider. So we can load the slider object from the models library. Models library, and then I give a layout to this widget box. Now this is there. Now I combine both using the column stack what we learned earlier. This is what it is there. Let's try if this is gonna work. I'm moving, but there's no action because there should be a connectivity between these two. This is just the layout look which we have connected with, but not the interaction which we have added. Now we need to add that interaction to this both. How do we do it? That is where the Bokeh specialty comes in, where the JavaScript comes into the picture. Now we have multiple ways of doing this. Now one point I would like to mention here, as I told before as well, Bokeh, we can use it as a standalone application as well as we can use it as a server app. I will get into the details of the server later on point of time, but now let me explain you the standpoint what we have been discussing so far. Now when I say standpoint, I don't want the UI events to be triggered and gets my user actions here. So I just want a small callback where I can see this kind of interaction happening. So let me show you how can I do it. One way of achieving it is widget callbacks. I'll show you. Now this is the slider what we have defined, and this is the inbuilt events which are assigned to the widget actions. Widgets. Now like on change, we have many other events which are very clearly mentioned. Bokeh.js library and events, if we go in detail, we have a lot of good documentation over there and we can go through them. And for a bit explanation, I'll show you guys with on change event. Now what is on change event? I'm creating a connection between my slider and the plot. So for every change on the slider, I'm calling my callback function and I'm passing the value. So what I can do is old attribute in new. Now whatever the slider, the new value which I've chosen in my slider gets, I can read that, and with the new data, now with the x, this is the logic which I wanted to achieve, as I told you guys, like to the power of whatever the slider. Now what I'm doing is I'm updating my data. This is the plot. If you guys observe, this is the source which we have given to the plot. Now what we want to do, for every change in the slider action, I want to update my plot. So what I do, we need to go and update the data of this particular source. This is something which we are doing inside this callback, where source.data, I am assigning the new values. So rather than redrawing the plot every time I am changing a slider value, this is something, a flexible option which we have with not much of load on the Python code as well. What we do is we just update the data to the existing plot itself. This is one way, but I have executed it. Now if you see, I see some error. What exactly is that? Is if you read through, it says that the callback kind of JavaScript actions which you are using might not be suitable for the requirement what you are doing right now. Why? This is standalone. I'm not doing any web UI calls over here. So this kind of format, callbacks, is better suggested when we go with the server interactions which are happening, where a server, when I say, is acting as a connection between the UI and our Python code. So when we go with such kind of event interactions, callbacks is the best way of implementing the code. Now just to show you guys, just a moment. Why did I run it? Oops, I did not run it.
Yes, Ramya? Anything?
Yeah. No, just a moment. I have to.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a minute, guys. Sorry. I don't need all this. I don't need all this. I don't need. Yeah, I need this. Where were I? Yeah. Oops, I did not clear it. Okay, now my plot is here, my slider is here. As I told you, there is no interaction happening here, and then I go ahead and call this column. Okay, what's happening?
Soumya, can you talk a little bit louder?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, just a moment. I am missing something in my chat box. Sorry. Something is going on here. What's that? Let me check that, guys. I don't want to get stopped over there. I'll just show you the other way of doing it so that right now we don't get stuck. Here, the other way, what I told you, like the standard format which is suggested for the standalone output is this. the custom code declaration in the JavaScript format. So this is the reason why I told you little bit of knowledge of the JavaScript is required when we are going for the standalone kind of representation dashboards. Now, how are we doing it and how is it different from what we did before is the custom JS. This is again one of the object which we will be loading from our models, Bokeh models library. And then if you see, it is the same event call. Now in this case, I'm calling the callback exactly. And how exactly the callback is working, the way of defining the callback is different in both the cases. Excuse me. Now this is my custom JS and this is the code which it is doing and this is the source. Now custom JS, we can pass the arguments like what we want to deal, the source data which I wanted to access. Now we are going to update the data, therefore I need the access. JavaScript doesn't access the other Python code variables, therefore I need to pass this value to the JavaScript code. That is where we make use of the arguments here. So now I'm passing my data and this is my code. What I'm doing here is I am accessing my data and CB object. What exactly is CB object in custom JS is whatever the event which we are linking our callbacks with. Example in this case, our slider JS. Now whatever the value of the slider JS is on, that is something which we can access using the CB object. Now F will retain the value of what we have on the slider. If you see, the plot is getting updated. So whatever the value which I'm selecting, now I have selected value of 2 and if you see 0.4 whole square, 0.6 whole square. So this is how the values of y corresponding to the x are getting updated using this part of code. This is my logic of updating y values. And then I am doing source, change the value of the source with respect to these values as x and y are the values. Update the source values with whatever changes we have done. This is what the command source.change.emit is doing here. And upon this, as you keep changing the slider, the plot gets updated with the corresponding values. So this is the one of the interaction which we can achieve using the standalone. I have given a small explanation with respect to this just in case it comes in handy for you guys. Now that is the interaction within the static application. Let me move ahead and show you the server. What is a Bokeh server and how do we create the dashboards with it? Now the major importance of what we have been talking about is Bokeh is useful for the modern web browser interactive applications. We want to make use of that interaction which is offered by it. Therefore, how do we achieve it? So Bokeh server is something which comes into the place right now. It acts as it tries to connect the front end along with the back end, which is the Python, and creates, though the objects which we are defined in Python is not directly understandable by our UI. In between, there are certain actions which are happening and which is taken care by our Bokeh server. And how exactly is it happening? Bokeh server, if we see, we create plots using our Bokeh models. What I have shown you, consider there is just a figure underlined to it, and I added few attributes to it, and we have certain tools to it. Now this is one particular plot. How exactly it underneath it forms is, it forms a document. It forms a model first. And what does a model? Model is combination of all the things which we attached right now, and it segregates into these formats. So each and every rectangular section, what you are seeing now here is the models, and all these things are added as a layer and it forms a document. And this document is something which gets converted into the JSON, which is again understandable by our front end UI. So this is how the Bokeh interactivity is happening underneath. Now let me show you with small example how do we do it. So how is it Bokeh server different usage from the regular standalone? We make use of the current document. What exactly is current document? So the we are trying to prepare the document with the existing objects what we want to plot with. Now I am creating, I'm loading the current document, and as I gave that to a name, to a Bokeh doc, and what all I want to see in this document, I keep adding them. Now in this case, I have drawn a very simple plot where I'll be seeing just a plot with the circles, I mean the scattered values. Now I added that sample plot to my document, and I just gave a name to it when it's getting displayed on the browser. I want it to be displayed as a sample Bokeh app. Now if I run it, does it work? It just executes, but it doesn't show up anything. Why? Because this is something which renders using the Bokeh server. So we need to trigger the server first. And how do we do it? There is a command, and just a moment. There is a command Bokeh. We need to use this Bokeh serve show and whatever the application name or the Python file name which we want to use. Let me run it in. I'll open the command prompt and Bokeh survey, and I'll use sample Bokeh app.python. I'm triggering it. Now if you see, this is a simple plot with the values scattered, and as if you see, this is the name which I'm tending to give, and I am triggering this using the server. This is so simple, right? Why do we need this when we have other interactions which can happen? So let me add a small interaction to it. I will say to the existing plot, keep on adding the values in a certain intervals. So I will say do a callback, periodic callbacks, and keep on adding the values to that particular plot. So this is a small set of, again, sample code with where I define number. It doesn't accept because already it says there is a document which is loaded on this port and we need to exit it. So in order to trigger the other one, we need to try with the different port number. Bokeh serve show port 5001 and periodic callbacks. Let me just check. Oops. Sorry. What's that? Bokeh app with a periodic plot. Yeah. Now this is my plot, and if you see, after every 5 seconds, these values get updated. The data seems to be increasing. So I'm not doing anything, like there is no interaction also. But in the backside, Python code, it's running and it's adding the code. So this is where the Bokeh comes into the picture. In the real time, when we have the streaming data and we want the data to be updated in a real time of, in a certain period of time, there is no interaction required, and we can update the existing plots with the information periodically. By using the backend Python code is running, there is no callbacks, and the front end gets updated. This is the best, one of the best feature of the Bokeh, I would say. Now, yeah, I have given you on a brief overview, like to see how the notebook server, how is the static and all. Let me jump into an application which I have started my learning with as a part of my interest, and then how I turn this learning into a real-time action as my day-to-day job. So now, when I started learning this, I thought like we as a data science professionals every day doesn't deal with small set of data sets, and with the recent amount of information which we are receiving every day to day, it's really not sufficient. Like we go through the same stuff again and again and spending time. So what I did rather with respect to every POC, we get the data and we go through the same stuff. Now, what if I can prepare a dashboard which helps me to look at the data in a glimpse, and so that I don't need to go and query it in my Python every time, like data frame.query, this condition, what is the output, okay, to see on this day, what is the sales and the corresponding event or promotion or price. I want to know that all the information on a same level. And is it possible for me to get all the information in a glimpse? Yes, we can do it. Just that initial effort is required to prepare dashboard. But once it is handy, it is really of great use. I'm the user of that. Now, example, how I do it is, consider you have a certain products and the locations category informations as a part of your data, and you want to see how what products are performing well and what is the rate of change of product sales year and year, and which product is sold majorly on what particular date, and is there any pattern in my product sales, and is there any correlation between the price and the sales, and okay, is there any promotions which are having an effect on my sales, and there is a corresponding change in the prices. So we can have all these questions, and to get the solutions, we need to code them, right? I mean, it takes time and it's a repetitive work. So to overcome that, I've come up with this particular dashboard, which we can use it. Which we can use it for this kind of investigations. Now, in this case, I have categories, I have product dropdown, and I have locations dropdown. And this is a small data set, dummy data set, which I prepared for this. Now, how it works is, if my categories drop down, if I select any particular value, like example in this case, produce, all the plots should get updated with respect to only the produce related category information, not the center of store information. Now also at the same time, I also want my drop downs, products and locations to be updated with only those which belongs to this category but not the other. So two actions with respect to change in event of drop down. One, the other drop downs should get updated. Two, all my plots should also get updated accordingly. These are the two requirements at hand. So if you observe, initially I have all, and we see 1, 2, 3, 4 products in it. Now I change it to the produce. If you observe, all the plots get updated, and also the drop down. This is having only 3 products now. There is one product which belongs to center of store, which got removed from this, and also only the locations belongs to this. Now I select one particular product, and I should see all the plots should get updated with respect to this particular product and all the locations which are related to this. And with this I can see, okay, this is a product which was having might be like 2016 it might have introduced, and 2017 it catch up the boom and it had good sales. But as the trend has, like, the popularity of the product has reduced, there is a decrease in the sales. So this is just a very high level info which we can see, like there is a decreasing trend, but there was a high movement in 2017. Quick observation. And I also wanted to see this product majorly selling on which day, and on a particular weekday, when it is maximum, when it is minimum. So all such kind of information I want to view. Is it possible? Yes. So example, now if you see, this is what I told you. Though on the plot we see only minimum, maximum and average, still we can see the total sales and total sales value. This is what I told you guys when I was explaining the hover section. It's not required like all the values which we want to see on the hover needs to be there in the plot. We can still retrieve the information which is there in that source data which I've been talking about. Now with this I can see that majority of the sales happen on Sunday, and on Sunday what we usually observe is, sorry for this, having issue with mouse. Yeah. So on a weekday of Saturday, I have, out of all the history information I have, minimum sale that has happened is 1, maximum sale is 324, average sales which we observe is 28, and the total sales which is observed in the entire history is 19,474. So in a very quick, we can get an understanding of the weekday level information. As you know, time series, the level of day and the weeks, these plays an important role in occupying the trend and the seasonality. So this is what the very high level info which we can see from here. Now let me show you guys one more interesting stuff. Now as of now you see only the sales and the other values, but where did the price go and how do I get the price information revealed? There is a point, there is a reason why I am not showing the price here. Now there can be one product which can be sold at multiple places at different prices. So actually price varies at the location level. It's not same at all the products level. Therefore, I want to dig into the granular level, which is the location level. So what I want is when I select location, I want my price to be populated. So these are the kind of customizations which we can do when we with the help of the Bokeh. When you want to display what and how we can modify it, and as per the user interactions we can accordingly make the plots visible and hide them. So this is one great feature which is available. And now this I can just see what is the one quick point. You see these tools over here, right? The one which is highlighted means that they are in action. The ones which are not there, which are not highlighted, they are not in action. Now in this case, hover is enabled. So when I hover over it, I can see on a day of 2017, August 13th, I see a sales quantity of 89, and the corresponding price value I can also see, in a very easy way I can go and see the price, and I can see if there is any correlation, like my price is reduced. So somehow I will expect the sales to increase, right? So is my observation correct or not is something which we can have in a very quick view. We can get that information. Now I have this much of information, but I'm interested to know only on majorly, between 2017 to 2018. I want to drill down more. Here comes the investigation tools which we have, where I can use this slider also. I will select only this region, and I can only concentrate on this area of my interest and see the how exactly is it. The price has increased on this day. Therefore, we see a reduce in the sales. A price was constant, but still there is a higher sales observed at this point. Maybe there was some event, there are some promotions, something like that we can do. And as a part of the code, I have also included the predictions as action item. I mean, for learning purpose, you guys can do a simple moving average and add them as in a predictions and see how the effect of predictions are varied or moved away from the sales, or that level of observations are also easily available. That is something which I recently used for one of my tasks, and that was really handy. In a very useful way, I was able to figure it out. And one more thing is, this also helps in finding the discrepancies. Discrepancies like, in the recent time, what I observed is I was just using the data as it is, and I had the maximum day and the minimum day, and I was like, data is fine. But when I actually started using this plot, I observed that there was a lot of data missing in between the time period, which was not captured by my analysis during data engineering process. And when I started plotting it, I see all the empty values here. There is no plot for it. When I digged into the details, that is the data discrepancy which I found, and then we had to take some step in order to handle that situation. So this comes into a picture handy, very useful. So not just for the dashboards to show to somebody, but as a day-to-day work life, if you want to make your life comfortable, we can brainstorm and come up with such ideas and bring up such dashboards like EDA dashboards, which we can use and reduce and make our productive. We can make more productive by using such kind of things. So we can spend less time on coding much and more time on analyzing and solving the problems. So this is a small example or demo for the dashboard interactions, and this is the code base. I will not go in detail to the code base as it's really gonna take time for it. What I will just explain you is on a high level how the dashboards are getting affected, like when I change the drop down, what are the key methods which are getting called. That is something which I'll show you, so you guys can go through it, and if there are any questions, you guys can get back to us with your queries. Now this is where I am loading all my libraries part of the code, and I'm reading my dummy data which I've prepared, and this is something which I told you guys to play around with. Create predictions and add them to the sales plot and have some analysis, see how your predictions are working in correspondence to your sales. This is the data load and the engineering part, just setting up the variables. Now just to have a quick view I have created, rather than repeating the same code all the time, I just move them into a code and calling them to see the starts of the data. Now comes the picture. So I'll come into this method definition soon. So logics, these are the logics where upon user drop down actions, what needs to be handled. So when a drop down is getting changed, when a category is getting changed, my products and the locations drop downs needs to get updated. So all that logic has gone into these methods, and they are segregated for better maintenance and clear understanding. So we any queries, you can check the code, it's crystal clear, I would say. And yeah, these are the definitions for the plots. So one action was drop down is changed, the other drop downs needs to be modified, and second thing is plots also needs to be updated accordingly. So this is the part of the code where we are updating the data as well as the plots accordingly. So there are multiple methods used for individually for every 3 sections of plots what I showed you. This is the main function for the dashboard, where if you see, this is the drop downs which I am setting up: category drop down, products drop down, and my locations drop down. And this is where I am attaching the pieces, where what is my, I'm defining the drop down, and I'm giving the options as what I have created before. And this is the callback event which I have told you about. Like on change of this category drop down, we need to look at the code and the logic defined in the category drop down. Similarly, the product and the locations. This is the callback events of the code, and the logic are individually defined in the method definitions. Now these are the plots definitions, and this is where we are getting the data structure and the plot structures for this particular plots. So if you see, there is a segregation for every plot. Go through them, and based on what I have explained, almost all the points I've tried my level best to include all the factors which are described over here. So we'll have a good practice. So I have arranged the range tool using the sales and all those stuff. So this is how we have created that particular dashboard, and I have combined all the plots in a layout using the widgets and my plots. And if you see, we can, if you run this particular document only using Shoal, it works, but the interaction doesn't happen. But if you run it through a Bokeh server, this is how it works. Yes, so this is what we have planned for the today's call. Now is the time for the question answers. Let me know if anybody has an. Okay, I see a lot in the chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Samya. There were like a couple of questions in the chat box. We tried, okay. Me and Parul tried to answer them. Okay. So these are the 3. One was just a second. Yeah. So Dhanasri was asking, like, if we are passing the arguments, doesn't it make it complex? Okay. So that is related to the standalone callback versus the standalone error. Okay. Okay. That's one. Yeah. And okay. The other one is Rishita was asking whether she can create a web page with Bokeh. So Rishita, I hope your question is clear now, right?
Okay, to the Dhanasri's question, so as the JavaScript, as I told you through the explanation, like from a Python code, we are trying to execute the JavaScript language. So the JavaScript won't have access to the objects what we want to update. Therefore, we need to pass the arguments in order to access the data and to do the actions. So that is something which we can't avoid. But rather, a smart way of handling it is, rather than sending up loading up with the multiple information which is not required, passing on only those information which is required will help in handling the load, I would say.
Okay. There was another question from Akash. He was asking the difference between comparison between Dash and Bokeh. Okay. So Bokeh, Parul has already shared a link, and these are like two different libraries, okay. And see, we should not say where you can use Bokeh, where you cannot use Bokeh, or where you can use that. It's completely up to you whether you go ahead with a Python interactive script, or you want the JavaScript based rendering, like that. There is D3 as well, okay. In comparison, there is so many other chatting applications out there. So it's completely up to you what you want to, how you are familiar, and what you want to choose based on your use case, okay. It's but Bokeh is, as you have seen, the interactive level, the interdependency between the different dependent and independent variable. It is, you can code, you can play around. That's where it is useful. Yeah, go ahead, Sonia.
So yeah, as Rajshri mentioned, so there is no hard code rule like this particular library works better than compared to the other. It's as per the use case, and being in this field, like, it's good to have a knowledge of all the libraries, I would say, so that we can have an understanding how is the best performance and what can be used at what instant of time. I would say in the learning perspective, it's good to know all this stuff, but based on the requirement, we can choose what suits the requirement. Now, with my personal experience, I've been using Bokeh. Plotly is something for respect to the static plots I've been using, but not majorly for the interaction. Like the UI related dashboards is something which I have not I did not play around, frankly speaking. But within the notebook, I've done my hands-on with some interactions. The only observation what I found is, as the data load was increasing, the notebook, it was taking really lot of time for the interaction to happen. That is my observation. Correct me if I'm wrong. But so I feel more comfortable with Bokeh compared to the Plotly with respect to the interaction level. There is no rule like, or no thing like that is working better than this. But this is just my observations, and as for my comfort, I'm best using these stuff.
Yeah, there was another question from Raji. To view the dashboard, can it be done only through localhost or view in any other way?
Sorry, when you say we can embed the web applications. Okay, so sorry, I missed one point. Thanks for that question, actually. So if you guys see, where are you?
Towards the beginning, I guess, where you export that into HTML.
Yeah, I want to show something. Yeah, exactly. Where are you? Oh. Linked panning, where I am plotting. Sorry for this, but just wanted to check something. Linked brushing, linked panning, where was that? Yeah. Why haven't I declared? Okay, so we have drawn this plot, right? And I have actually saved it in a form of an HTML. This is a static file. Where are you? Where's my plot? Okay, output file. Why hasn't it? Yeah, so if you guys see, there is a plot HTML which got generated, right? Let me open this in the Visual Studio. This pretty much covers the yeah, so this explains you how exactly the server is converting the code which was written in Python to use UI understandable code and the objects. So when I ran that and I have saved it in a form of an HTML, what we see is this is an HTML, and there is a div which got created with some root ID and the data root ID. So now whatever the plots which you are seeing, that gets binded to this particular division. And if you see, there is a script which says the JSON object. So what is this JSON object? Whatever my plot, the structures which you are seeing here, like this is a plot AAPL stock with x-axis range of this and the line plot of this with the certain interaction tools. All these things actually gets converted into an JSON object. If you observe it here and if you have a clear look, you can actually see the names and how they are getting converted. But this will be too much at this point of time to go through, but I will say this is a JSON object which is understandable by the UI. And how is it? This JSON gets converted into the UI understandable substances by using Bokeh.js, which I've been telling you. So this is a converter which converts the JSON into the UI objects and which forms the plots in the layout. And how is it done? And after this data object, this is the document which got created, and this is the code which is actually doing that job. If you see the doc ID, the root ID which was defined above, it is actually taking care of all the document which was created in the JSON object, converting into the stuff which is understandable by UI using the Bokeh.js, and then embedding this into this div. The root here is the div, and that's how we are seeing the plot. Now if you say, can we generate this dashboard? So we can create this static values and we can embed them all into an HTML and we can share it with people. Now with this, you have all the data linked to this as well, and therefore it works with the interactions. This is one way of using the dashboard apart from the local. Hope I answered the question, or is it too deviating from the question?
Soumya, this is also answered some other question where people were asking, can we embed in the mobile app? Yes, if in your mobile app, if you have a a layer where you can call the JavaScript or the web interface, like your embedded browser part and all, you can use this HTML output to display in the mobile web app. And there was another question also, can we integrate with Heroku? So it was Parul already answered. So Jay already, to answer your question, Heroku is a web server, right? So when you expose your pages, so you can embed the HTML part, and also there are libraries as the blog you can go through how to embed it in Heroku. Okay, and but when it comes to the Bokeh server has to run as a different instance. It should not, you should not integrate that with Heroku. The page itself can be integrated. Okay. Right. I think we are done with the questions. Yeah. So I think we are done with the questions. Any other question you guys have? We have to quickly wrap up. We are over time already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can share your queries, and we'll be sharing the code with you guys. You can have a look at it, and
yeah, feel free to get your hands dirty. All the code and the pages will be shared in the meetup page. Please go through that, and you can post your questions. We'll try to answer them. Okay. It was a very good interactive session, Soumya. Guys, please pardon us for the technical glitches. This is the first time we are doing the online session. We'll be a bit more prepared for the next time. But thanks a lot. Thank you, Soumya, for providing so much insight within 1 hour of time. It's very good. It's wonderful seeing the interactiveness, seeing the feature which Bokeh provides, and the audience, of course, they are very obedient and they are asking good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
you so much, guys.
Good questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for supporting us and listening to us. And do reach out to us if in case of any queries. And hope you like this session.
Yeah. So as I say, spread the word. I see a lot of members joining, and we'll continue to get more and more sessions like this whenever possible in person and whenever possible online. Okay. So that's it. We are done for this day. Thanks a lot. Have a good day and stay safe. Stay home. Follow the rules. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.